Jill Schnitt, you have done marathons, you've swum with sharks, and now you're Madam President, which has a nice ring to it, of an outdoor advertising agency. They might be one and the same, right? Like marathon swimming with sharks and heading up an agency.
Now that you say it, it sure feels like it. And that was all within the past 3 years that happened. So I've definitely gotten a quick dive in with sharks, both in the executive space as well in the true ocean.
I do want to clarify that the shorthand name for your division or agency is OMG, and that was acquired by Omnicom, which also has Omnicom Media Group, right? So we're talking about Outdoor MG today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Outdoor Media Group. We love acronyms here.
We do. We'll get into a little bit more of the personal, but we're speaking with Jill Schnitt for episode 28 of Insider Interviews, where you get the insider scoop on the business of media, marketing, and advertising. And our scoop today is going to be all about out of home. Tell us exactly what OMG is and does.
So Outdoor Media Group is the special business unit within Omnicom Media Group. We service all clients across the AORs, another acronym, Arts and Science, OMD, and PhD, as well as have, partners across the Omnicom portfolio of agencies and independent business. When we think about the out-of-home landscape, it's anything that's not on the TV, radio, or computer. More specifically, large format media, so walls and bulletins, whether on the roadside or within cities, street level media, such as kiosks or bus shelters, transit media within subways or on buses, place-based media, office buildings, health clubs, gas stations, cinema, and experiential media as well. Across that full spectrum, we buy traditional and digital out of home. And about 50% of the media buys that we do in the marketplace are now digital out of home, which exceeds the industry benchmarks.
Wow. So you have to be very nimble. You have to learn a lot about a lot of different formats and be able to advise your clients intelligently in so many different shapes, sizes, tactics. Holy moly, that's a lot.
Yeah, we definitely always have our finger on the pulse on what's going on across the out-of-home landscape, but what's also happening across video and digital. That way we can take influence from other media channels and bring some of the best practices and learnings into the out-of-home space.
Good on you.
And what we're here to talk about today is a little bit more about the digital out-of-home space, because all of these areas have been digitized.
Yeah. And actually, well, I want to get into the wonky part in a second. We should clarify that also. Anyone who's ever listened to this podcast, especially the last episode, knows that I write or talk a lot about out of home, OOH, and digital out of home, DOOH. So those are a couple more acronyms that we can throw into the mix. And now you're the cool kid if you're listening.
Yeah, and EB, don't forget about programmatic digital out of home now, which has a whole
pDooh.
pDooh.
Oh my goodness. Well, all right, then we are going to get into that right away, because I think that you guys were like the first to launch programmatic digital out of home at scale. Is that right?
Yeah. So actually, let's jump in the time machine back about 10 years. I started my career at Outdoor Media Group, and about a decade ago, the out-of-home industry really started converting a lot of the traditional out-of-home inventory to digital out-of-home. And beyond that, a lot of networks started popping up. You have networks in office buildings, in health clubs, in malls, in daycare centers, right? So it was really important that Omnicom took a leadership position here, and Outdoor Media Group took a leadership position in understanding the developing landscape from traditional and static out of home to digital out of home. Now, fast forward to where we're at today, we are definitely a leader when it comes to digital out of home. And within that is also programmatic digital out of home. So the transaction type has also expanded and developed and seen progress over the course of the 10 years now that we have all of these connected screens across the country.
So let's chunk that out just a little bit. So one can have DOOH, digital out of home, that is not necessarily bought and sold programmatically. But again, I'll use the phrase the cool kids are all really moving towards pDooH, programmatic digital out of home. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think, we expected this to advance a little quicker more recently, but I think the impact of the landscape over the past 4 years of what happened, across our world really impacted the way that clients were buying and thinking about out of home. They wanted flexibility. They wanted transparency. They wanted to be able to start and stop campaigns. We work with a number of clients through different categories, in the auto category who may have had supply issues, right? So they can't have a campaign live and demand, but no supply. So programmatic digital out of home and digital out of home in general allows us to have that flexibility. So when we think about digital out of home, there are two ways in which we can transact, and that's through a direct IO, which we've been doing for many years across out of home.
And IO, I'm just going to, is insertion order.
Insertion order, okay. Correct. Yes, another acronym for you and your listeners. Or we can transact programmatically through a DSP.
Okay, demand side platform.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm getting it down. Since you learned from the ground up, what's happening in out of home? What are the trends that you're seeing? What do you want to tell some of your clients about the power of out of home and digital out of home that they might not be thinking about?
Yeah, so there are a few things that I think are really important as I think about closing out the year and the year ahead. Some areas of focus for us at Outdoor Media Group are going to be educating our clients and our teams on the ability to use first-party data to plan out of home, right, and execute so that you are in the place where your audience is that can drive business results. And then developing an attribution model following that to prove out that what we've put in the marketplace is actually working. The second thing that's really important to us is thinking about creativity. Often out of home is thought of as this really cumbersome media channel, right? You have different sizes and landscapes of media formats. But what's been really interesting is to see the industry come together and develop solutions that allow you to take digital creative and optimize it for the out-of-home space. So thinking about attribution, measurement, targeting, and creativity together, and then looking at out-of-home as being able to make an impact beyond just brand, right? And lower funnel metrics is going to be really important for us as an industry and for us here at Outdoor Media Group to educate our clients.
Well, you mentioned a couple of things in there, and I want to start with attribution. And I think that that's first cousins with ROI, right? So how are you proving out the value of it? What are the new tools and tactics that enable attribution and targeting and all of the above?
Yeah, so there are a number of partners that we work with from a measurement standpoint because they're all different measurement partners that our clients work with. So we want to be able to be nimble to what they're thinking about, right? So the out-of-home industry in general has embraced a lot of the methodology and a lot of the partners that are used across other channels. So what we're doing is saying out-of-home is not just a brand lift or a brand awareness media tactic, right? We can inform lower funnel metrics. So that's everything from footfall into conversion on a website as well.
Okay. Footfall meaning those who physically walked by it and the amount of traffic that got exposed to it. And then the conversion is aligning who saw the board and then walked in and made a purchase.
Yeah, so we have some really great studies that we've been doing in the marketplace. For example, we represent a number of QSR clients, right? And so what we're able to say is that we drove traffic to an individual store or location. We've increased purchase intent of a product that they are putting and promoting on their digital billboard network, right? That they're updating in maybe real time to show promotions. And then in addition to that, we've shown that we've drove people into that location, but we can also see where else they're going so that we can inform future campaigns. Do they travel to an office building? Do they go to a health club nearby? Have we included those formats in our media mix? If not, let's add that on to the next plan so that we can help expand the frequency and reach of a campaign.
So you can buy on behalf of your clients in any out of home environment. You do all of that, right?
We touch it all. I don't think there's a single media format that we at Outdoor Media Group have not purchased. Everything from those gas station pumps to the taxi tops to even the Sphere in Las Vegas, which is the industry's, biggest new toy that all of our clients are, grasping at and trying to run at and find a reason to get media dollars to invest in.
That sphere, it just like my head exploded when I first saw it. But what really, really got to me, and I think that your shop was involved with this, the giant Dorito chip on the side of the Luxor in Las Vegas. I could see that when I was at CES in January. I could see that. That's all I could see out of my hotel window. And I was so taken with it. I thought it was so creative that I talked about it on one of my podcast episodes from CES. That thing got like 400 million earned impressions. So it was just so creative, taking a Dorito chip and putting it in a triangular shaped building.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, lots of opportunities for that.
Absolutely. Our clients at Frito-Lay continue to challenge us. And what many don't realize is that was actually phase 2 of the campaign that we had already brought to market. So prior to that, we actually used projection media across buildings in multiple cities to turn them into Doritos. So found triangular inspired creative to do just that. We actually had a building in New York City that we projected a giant Dorito onto. So that second iteration, is a great example of how we were able to build a great campaign for a client. But I think what was awesome about that is I actually was on maternity leave during that time. It was all over my LinkedIn feed, and it just shows the power of out of home, to your point, to get us those earned impressions. You don't need to be in Las Vegas to see that media format. It just has to have that creative impact for somebody to post, and then it has legs beyond just that particular geography.
That's such a good point, Jill, because I'm also taken by, this was a case study from a year or two ago when Maybelline in the UK did a faux out of home campaign where it looked like they had eyelashes attached to the front of a tube, as not lipstick tube or anything, but a train going through a tunnel that was getting swept with mascara. And so that looked like some kind of experiential or digital out of home, but it actually was really more of a social media campaign, if I'm interpreting that right. What's your opinion, or good use cases or evil use cases of faux out of home, if there are such things?
EB, I think for me, sitting where I am, it's important to stay open-minded about what's happening in the marketplace and not lean one way or the other towards this. But is there an opportunity for us to embrace faux out of home? And what is that opportunity? Is it seeing that a brand really values out of home, and now we can pitch them on the creativity that we can bring beyond, the AR or, special creative that they're doing? they clearly value something in this space. So it opens the door for us to maybe have a conversation. On the flip side, I do know a lot believe that it's not the right position for our industry to take, but I like to stay somewhere in the middle because the verdict, as I said, is still out. And I do think there is more opportunity and prefer to look at the glass half full for what that might be for our clients and the marketplace in general.
I love the way you answered that. And I would say that I'm kind of on the fence also. I don't want to be hoodwinked by a brand, but I also really appreciated the creative. And there's something to be said for getting buzz, but there's something to be said about being tricked. So I was definitely tricked for a while. So
Yeah, look, when you think about out of home, it's an I made it moment when your brand, whether you are a Fortune 100 company or a brand new D2C company, is on an out of home media format, whether it's the billboards in Times Square or the roadside, or it's your first cinema spot. It's really a moment for our brands and for any brands. And as we said, brand leaders, CMOs are posting this on their social channels. So there's really value there. Out of home works, right? Out of home is an I made it moment. And I think that's something that is really important as we think about the future of our media. People are not posting their digital banners, right? It's just a different way to approach the space and think about it holistically now that social channels have become so prolific, right? How do we work together to get that message out?
And really, the creativity has been remarkable. Aside from wrapping buildings or projection, I'll use $100 word here, anamorphic. There's such cool digital billboards out there, DOOH, that look like things are jumping off of the building, or you walk around the corner and it's a different perspective, aka anamorphic, and then ways to interact with it. And with digital being able to change creative on the fly. So lots of opportunities.
Yeah. So I think when it comes to creativity, our clients are certainly embracing 3D out of home. And what's been interesting is to see that that's become so exciting for our brands and marketers. And it's a heavy investment that there are now resources to make that investment more manageable, right? And so that we can scale that creative beyond just one location that it's tailored to. And you don't have to just buy a corner wrap. You can look at head-on media. So the space has definitely evolved over the past 2 to 3 years as we've seen clients lean into that 3D and anamorphic creative.
What is head-on media?
So if you're just walking straight, right, it's not necessarily a corner wrap. It's something that does not have that corner type of structure to it. Out of home can now take on creative that's just 3D on a straight unit. Vertical.
Back in the old days, billboards had to be painted.
Oh, yes.
And I can't even imagine how satisfying it must have been for that first creator of a 3D or anamorphic board. I mean, the first time you see one is pretty remarkable. People still are stopped in their tracks. Now, speaking of tracks, you mentioned that we can hit people at the bottom of the funnel, meaning closer to the point of purchase, and really connect those dots with out of home, which you don't always think of. But really, that's happening a lot because of retail media and that being a close relation to digital out of home.
Yeah. So when you think about retail media, out of home has a strong synergy to be close proximity to where people are making purchase decisions, whether it's a billboard on the side of the road driving to a nearby retailer. We've talked about several different formats, gas station TV, grocery TV. There are a number of different places throughout the daily journey that we can influence where consumers are making purchase decisions. Here at Outdoor Media Group within Omnicom Media Group, we actually created the first retail-based product that you can transact programmatically. And this was created about 2 or 3 years ago, prior to us really having such a strong retail and commerce conversation in the marketplace. So this is something, again, we tried to take a leadership position on and embrace early on so that we could drive business results and prove out what we know has always worked for us in the past. Take that art and now marry it with the science to show that we drove retail decisions, at the point of purchase.
The DPAA has its summit coming up, and I'm going to be talking about that in just a second. I think you'll be there, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you are giving me such good scoop on all things out of home, digital out of home, pDooh. Programmatic, digital out of home. But I am going to do a little bit of a deep dive with my new segment called The Inside Scoop. This time it's on digital out of home once again, but I'm bringing you some new research from the DPAA. That's the Global Trade Association for Digital Out of Home. And one of their members worked with DPAA at the beginning of the year to poll about 150 brands and agencies for a comprehensive research study. And here's what they found out. 80% of the respondents plan to recommend digital out of home and media plans over the next year. 80%. But almost every single one of them, 96%, expect to increase or maintain digital out of home spending. So if that doesn't tell you something, why? Well, Kochava says that 3/4 of brands and advertisers really believe that DOOH has become less siloed and is really more part of an integrated cross-channel strategy. It's also seen as more part of a digital video campaign, so they're getting share from digital video. Basically, that means that they see it as a complement to a digital plan and connecting with consumers on the path to purchase. It's just one of the top reasons why omnichannel decision makers use DOOH. Another couple reasons that Jill and I talk about. Well, you can't skip an outdoor ad, and it's pretty much brand safe. You're not going to be next to something shady. So think about that. I love to get the inside scoop on all different verticals and platforms. I talk to a lot of experts on my podcast. I write about it a lot for the trades. So I'm definitely going to get more of my own inside scoop on October 15th when the DPAA holds their global summit in New York. It's the Video Everywhere Summit. Pretty well named because, right? Digital out of home is really digital everywhere. They'll have about 1,000 folks there. It's one of the largest media conferences in one day anywhere. They're going to have brands, media buyers, sellers, planners. They'll have CMOs and media heads from Colgate, Palmolive, GM, MasterCard, our friends at Danone. And yes, plus Omnicom will be in the house. Group M, Nexus. Anyway, you get the idea. And you know how important local marketing is, especially in an election year. Well, they've got NBCU's Steve Kornacki, the guy that we watch during all of the returns on polling and how the election is going. He's going to be there speaking as well. Now, gilding the lily is, if you ever met the DPAA's CEO, Barry Fry, you know that he can inform and entertain in one shot. But even Barry knows to bring in the pros, and he's doing it again. So the Video Everywhere Summit is going to bring in Broadway. Yes, they do this every year. It's really cool. They're bringing in performers this year from Back to the Future, the musical. They'll sing, they'll dance. It's going to be a full day of learning in an entertaining kind of way. And yes, there will be breakfast. Yes, there will be cocktails. It's all overlooking the beautiful Hudson River. It's at Pier 60 on October 15th. So you got to get your tickets now. Just go to dpaasummit.com. I'll be there. Jill will be there. We'll talk, we'll laugh, we'll learn. It's great. Thanks to the DPAA for helping us give more inside scoop. So I'm going to share some stats that something like 41% of agencies and brands think about digital out of home as an extension of TV and video planning. So are you starting to see the lines blurred in the media that you're recommending? Do you have to play nicely in the sandbox with the other agencies across the board?
What's nice here is that, within Omnicom, we really think of out of home as part of the integrated approach. So as we're planning, we certainly have a seat at the table. And then as budgets are brought about, or we think about a strategy, we think about how out of home can fit into that media mix and be an extension of a video strategy. We do have clear swim lanes. Our video activation team handles video within the home, whether that's, broadcast or CTV. And then once you go outside of the home and think about cinema or, networks, as we've discussed many times, office buildings, gas stations, health clubs, malls, airports, so on and so forth, that definitely falls within the out-of-home expertise. But we work together to figure out what's best for a brand strategy and an extension of one another.
That's cool. And then you work also with the creative teams, or are you strictly creating the media planning and optimizing that?
It will definitely vary based on the account and based on the account structure. We always love and welcome an opportunity to sit with creatives because it allows us to showcase the, opportunities within the out of home space. What's unique about out of home sometimes is that there's no sound on the video networks. Mm-hmm. So we need to think about the creative and marrying maybe closed captioning or changing out an L-shaped banner to really complement the messaging that is video on a screen.
Do you have any favorite case studies, like the coolest thing you've worked on in the past year?
Oh, wow. We are doing so much great work at Outdoor Media Group, and I'm so proud of the team that we have here. We have such a team of tenured experts who are continuing to push the envelope. I think seeing many of our brands take over the sphere has been phenomenal. Again, because of those earned impressions, it's a high price point for sure, but the creativity that comes with that bespoke format is really interesting. It's hard for me to pick one particular client or vertical because the work has been so outstanding this year.
I'll pick one. Because I think that I think you shared this on, somebody from OMG had a LinkedIn post about it, but that whole trend, okay, maybe I'm too old for this, but it seems ridiculous, of sort of stylizing what you're traveling with through airports. And I guess you actually branded some travel bins at the San Jose airport with Canva and enabling like cute pictures of the security bins.
EB.
Even that out of home.
This is a great plug for our LinkedIn. So I do appreciate it because we've been showcasing the great work that we've done. So anything outside of the home can become a creative canvas. And I think that's what's most exciting, right? So being very relevant to a particular location or using a creative that works really well with an environment like inside of an airport bin tray, where we know that there's long dwell times.
Oh my gosh, I thought that was so funny. That was great. So any emerging trends that you want to talk about? Anything like so close to being out there as a new thing?
I think something that I personally am very passionate about is contextual relevancy and out of home. We have been talking about this for quite some time, but at scale, brands have not fully embraced it as a continuous way to look at the creativity within the format. So what that means is, providing value within the creative. So sports scores, right, that are local to the market. Or we've talked about in the past brands that have used a UV index to, educate an audience about buying a product that's going to help them when the sun is at a certain UV index. Or well, going back to retail media, a product that's sold just around the corner so that you don't have to search, far and wide for something that you'd like to purchase on the spot, because we know that out of home can drive to retail. So at scale and consistently, we haven't seen brands do this as an always on type of campaign. I'd love to see a brand portfolio utilize this on a more consistent basis. And I think going back to our measurement conversation, being able to prove out the efficacy of that type of creative is going to really help us drive that and the industry forward in this type of creativity.
I love that. Well, that I guess means that contextual relevancy is absolutely hand in hand with programmatic. So if you're going to change out the creative on the fly when the sun is out, reminding people to use their UV protection, that is achieved through programmatic swapping of creative right away, right?
Yeah, I mean, programmatic allows that to happen quickly and for us to bring in data triggers so that it is, very organic. And each environment in each city might have different UV indexes. So we need to utilize that data nationally to work in our favor so that, we're not pressing buttons on and off, but it can happen more organically through data triggers.
We're also seeing sort of the democratization for small businesses to access out of home as well. And, I also talk a lot about local and local market advertising. So having access to more digital out of home in a market by market basis is really important to help grow the small business economy, right?
Absolutely. Again, let's go back in the time machine to the beginning of time, right? And when the out of home industry started, it was the most local media format. It was to let people know the circus was coming to town and it was going to be in their local neighborhood. When you really go back to the roots of out of home, it's truly a local format. It's really the best way to speak to a community and specific audiences that you're trying to target within their particular town. So I think the ability to go back to the roots of it as a local media format is critical to thinking about out of home as well and driving that small business results.
Yeah. All right. So switching gears for just a second, you mentioned, for example, when the circus is coming to town, but you went out of town to see some circus animals. You just got back. I don't know how I got there, but you just got back from Tanzania, I think.
Yeah, so the past 4 years have been an exciting journey for me. I met my now husband and got married, and we went on our honeymoon to Tanzania, where, for those who have never been to Africa, is, such a beautiful place. I never in my life could have dreamed that I'd have an experience like that, but seeing giraffes in real life and lions and, just the nature that exists beyond the city of New York was just so amazing. The juxtaposition of the two environments was just so eye-opening. And while I was on my honeymoon, I got to go through different airports across the world, and it was the World Cup. And I got to see how the media in those markets had such an influence on the people there. People were, sitting around TVs watching the World Cup in the middle of the night as we were flying through Dubai. It was very cool. So yeah, it's always marrying work and personal life.
Literally. Your husband's a very patient man. And now you have a 1-year-old. So it really has been quite a fulfilling 4 years for you. Way to work the pandemic.
I had a really, really blessed 4 years. I did. I changed careers and, am now leading the best team in the out-of-home industry, the most tenured team in the out-of-home industry, to getting married, having my daughter, buying a house.
Wow.
I feel very blessed. And every day I just wake up feeling very motivated in both work and my personal life. And it's really nice that I've surrounded myself with people across the industry, not just within Outdoor Media Group, who have been so supportive of my personal career path and journey as well.
Nice. Well, you reap what you sow, I think, because you do have a reputation for building strong teams and mentoring talent. I read something that you were quoted in saying a year or two ago, I think, and it says, I'm just going to read this. You suggested to other women moving up and out of home that they get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Is that still your advice?
Yeah, I think that the only way to push yourself and your own boundaries is to do things that make you uncomfortable. As I said to you earlier, EB, off camera, this is my second podcast that I've done, and it's really exciting, but there's something
it's downhill from here, Jill.
But it's really exciting, but it's, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Knowing what you're saying in the marketplace is going to last for a long time for people to listen to beyond just this week, but
right.
Something that somebody can go back to. And I hope that I reflect back on this podcast and I grow from here. And, I'm excited to see in a year from now how what I said today has evolved or changed, and reflect back on that.
Yeah, it's always fascinating to see that. And it's a constantly evolving industry. So we do have you on record on both audio and video. And there will be links in the show notes. So just to kind of wrap it up now, you've implied what your personal brand is. You're supportive, you mentor people, you are a global citizen, if you will. But how do you help brands express their brand purpose through what you do?
Ooh, that's a heavy question.
Yes, it is. I saved the best for last.
When you think of out of home is, as I said, this I made it moment, and this moment for any brand, both well-established and new brands, to put out their messaging in a really authentic way, in a brand safe way. And my goal is for the clients and strategy teams that we work with to truly understand that we have this really great moment in time to help them put out their best messaging in the most authentic way and continue to build on it in this evolving landscape.
You mentioned something so important there too that we didn't even talk about, the fact that out of home is really brand safe and unskippable. So pretty good qualities. Jill Schnitt, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you on your second ever podcast recording. Maybe you'll come back and we will revisit this for what might be your 7th or 8th next year. Yeah.
I hope so. Thank you so much for having me, Evie, and I look forward to seeing you at the DPAA event.
Well, I hope you got some good insider scoop from this episode of Insider Interviews with me, E.B. Moss. If you enjoyed this content, please feel free to buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/mossappeal. And I hope you'll follow Insider Interviews on social media and let me know if you have a question or a suggestion for a next stellar guest in media, marketing, and advertising. Speaking of stellar, my theme music was composed and performed by the incomparable Grammy-winning John Clayton. If I can help you with your company's podcast, please find me at mossappeal.com. Thanks again for listening.